This is not about Venezuela. If you think what happened today is just another political crisis, just another president, just another unstable country, then you are missing the real story, because what happened in Venezuela is not the event. It is the signal, and signals are far more dangerous than events. Stay with me, because in the next minutes, you will understand why this moment may be remembered as the point where the world quietly crossed a line it can never uncross. And before we go any further, if you want content that explains global events before they explode, not after, subscribe now. Not later. Now. The world today is not collapsing loudly. It is shifting silently. And silence is always where the most dangerous changes happen. Venezuela has been on the global radar for years.
Sanctions.
Economic collapse. Political tension. Media pressure. So when something major happens there, most people shrug and say, of course, it's Venezuela. And that reaction is exactly why this works. Because when the world expects chaos from a place, anything done there feels justified. But here is the part you were never meant to focus on. Venezuela is not important because of its government. Not because of its ideology. Not because of its leader. Venezuela is important because of what it represents. It represents a country with enormous natural wealth that never fully surrendered control of it. And history is very clear about one thing. Countries that sit on massive resources rarely get to choose their destiny freely, especially when the global system is under stress. Now ask yourself something honestly. Why does this feel different from previous crises? Why does it feel heavier? Why does it feel intentional? Because the world right now is not stable enough for patience. Look around. Wars that refuse to end. Economic systems stretched to their limits. Currencies under pressure. Supply chains fragile. Energy routes politicized. This is not a healthy global environment. This is a system looking for pressure release points. And Venezuela just became one of them. Not because it is weak, but because it is symbolic. And symbols are always chosen carefully. Now here is where most media coverage stops. They show you images. They repeat statements. They argue about legality. But power does not operate emotionally. It operates strategically. And strategically, this moment sends one very clear message. No position is permanent. No leader is untouchable. No country is too far. This message is not aimed at Venezuelans. It is aimed at everyone else watching. Governments, allies, rivals, and even populations. It is a psychological operation as much as it is a political one. And psychological operations don't need tanks to be effective. They need fear, uncertainty, and precedent. Once a precedent is established, the world quietly adjusts its expectations. And adjusted expectations are how norms die. Now pause for a second. Think about this carefully. How many times in history did people say, they would never do that? Until they did. What changed? Not morality. Not law. Context. Context always decides what becomes acceptable. And today's context is dangerous, because the global order is no longer confident. And when systems lose confidence, they stop persuading and start enforcing. This is not about right or wrong. This is about power dynamics under pressure. And pressure reveals true priorities. Now let's talk about timing. Why now? Why not years ago? Because years ago the world could afford delays. Now it can't. Energy markets are sensitive. Political alliances are shifting. Alternative systems are being discussed openly. Control is no longer assumed, it is challenged. And challenged control always responds aggressively. Not immediately, but decisively. Venezuela did not suddenly become important. The world suddenly became unstable enough to act. That's the difference. And here's the part most people underestimate. This kind of move doesn't aim to create order. It aims to demonstrate capability. It's not about fixing Venezuela. It's about reminding everyone else of limits. And once limits are demonstrated, behavior changes globally. Leaders calculate differently. Countries hedge differently. Populations adapt psychologically. Fear doesn't need to be widespread. It just needs to be credible. Now let me make this very clear. This video is not defending any government. It is not attacking any nation. It is not promoting any ideology. It is explaining a pattern. Because if you don't see patterns, you will always be surprised. And surprise is the worst position to be in during global shifts. So what happens next? There are only a few realistic paths. 1. A controlled narrative where everything is framed as necessary and inevitable. 2. Prolonged instability that slowly normalizes external interference. 3. A ripple effect, where other sensitive regions quietly prepare for similar pressure. None of these lead to a calmer world. They lead to a more polarized one. And polarized systems do not de-escalate easily. They escalate through miscalculation. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. If this can happen here, what does that mean for other resource-rich countries? What does it mean for nations sitting on strategic routes? What does it mean for countries that believe distance protects them? Distance no longer matters. Visibility does. And visibility today is global. Now, why should you care? Because global shifts never stay global. They trickle down into fuel prices, into food costs, into currencies, into travel restrictions, into job markets. You don't need to live in Venezuela to feel the consequences. You just need to live in the world. And the world is entering a phase where stability is no longer the default. Adaptation is. This is why understanding matters more than opinion. Opinions divide. Understanding prepares. And preparation is the only real advantage left. If you've stayed this far, you already understand something most people don't. This wasn't chaos. It was communication. And communications like this are never sent only once. They are tested, measured, and refined. Venezuela today is not the conclusion. It is the test case. The question is not what happened. The question is who is next to be tested. And how ready the world really is. If you want more breakdowns like this, before they dominate the headlines, subscribe now, because the next signal may come from a place you're not expecting. And when it does, most people will say, "No one saw this coming." You won't.